The rain over Norfolk, Virginia, came down in thick, diagonal sheets, lashing against the windows of the Fleet Fitness Center. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of sweat, clean liniment, and the unique, ozone-like tang that accompanies extreme human exertion. It was the unofficial battleground of the naval station, a place where reputations were forged and broken under the brutal glare of fluorescent lights. Chief Marcus Thorne, a 20-year Marine with a chest full of commendations and an attitude to match, held court by the squad racks. To him, this gym was his territory. He was built like a bear, with a shaved head and a thick neck that disappeared into the colossal traps of his shoulders. His entourage, a group of younger Marines, hung on his every word, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes and subtly puffing out their own chests in his presence. So then, Marcus grunted, easily re-racking a weight that would have crippled most men. "The colonel asks me if we can secure the perimeter." I just looked at him and said, "Sir, with all due respect, is the Pope Catholic?" The group erupted in laughter. 3 days, we held that shithole of an intersection. 3 days. No sleep, nothing but MRS and guts. A young, lean Marine named Private First Class Miller nodded vigorously. "That's insane, Chief, real deal. You don't see that kind of grit with the squids." "Hey, now," Marcus said, but a smirk played on his lips. The inter-service rivalry was a sacred tradition, and the Navy, in his eyes, was a support branch. They drove the boats and fixed the planes, but the real fighting, the dirty work in the mud, belonged to the Marines. And the SEALs? He saw them as overfunded, overhyped prima donnas who did a few high-profile raids and then wrote books about it. "Speaking of which," Miller said, nodding his chin towards the entrance, "check out the new meat." A figure had walked in, shedding a dark, soaked jacket to reveal a plain gray t-shirt and black leggings. It was a woman. She was of average height, with a lean, athletic build that spoke more of a swimmer's grace than a weightlifter's bulk. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her face was calm, almost placid, as she scanned the gym. She moved not with arrogance, but with a focused, economical purpose, heading straight for the leg press machine. Marcus's smirk widened into a full-blown grin. He nudged Miller. "All right, Miller time. Watch and learn how we welcome the new admiral of the admin department." The group snickered. The woman, oblivious or indifferent to them, began her workout. She loaded the leg press with a moderate amount of weight, nothing that would impress the crew by the squad racks, and began a set of deep, controlled presses. Her form was perfect, her breathing rhythmic. Marcus, having just finished a set, swaggered over, a bottle of water in his hand. He didn't address her directly at first, instead standing a little too close, talking loudly to Miller, who had followed like a shadow. "You know the problem with this gym, Miller? Too much recreational traffic. You got the weekend warriors, the cardio bunnies, and the paper pushers who think running 5 miles on a treadmill makes them operators." He took a long, theatrical swig of water. "Clogs the place up. Real athletes can't get their work in." The woman finished her set, sat up, and wiped her face with a small towel. She didn't look at him. She adjusted the pin on the machine, adding a little more weight. Marcus leaned against the machine itself, the metal frame groaning under his weight. "Hey there. You're new. Just a heads up, on heavy lift days, the serious guys usually get priority on the equipment. Saves everyone time." She finally looked at him. Her eyes were a startling, clear blue, and they held his with a dispassionate calm that was somehow more unnerving than anger. "I'm just finishing up, Marine. You'll survive the wait." Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the ambient noise of the gym with perfect clarity. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. He wasn't used to being talked back to, especially not by a woman in a navy t-shirt. "Oh, I'll survive. That's cute. Thanks for your permission, ma'am." He said ma'am like it was an insult. "Look, sweetheart, this isn't Zumba class. That's a lot of weight you're putting on there. You sure you don't want a spot? Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself on your first day." For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Not anger, not fear, but a weary sort of amusement. "I think I can manage. I insist," Marcus said, his voice dripping with condescending gallantry. "A Marine's duty is to protect, even from themselves." He positioned himself at the head of the machine, his arms folded, a smug look plastered on his face. He fully expected her to struggle, to fail on the first rep, giving him the perfect opportunity to step in, save the day, and have another story to tell. The woman lay back on the pad. She placed her feet on the platform, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. Then, with a smooth, powerful motion, she pushed. The stack of weights rose easily, clanking softly. She did a rep, then another, and another. Her form never broke. Her face remained a mask of serene concentration. 10 reps, 15, 20. She moved through them with the mechanical consistency of a machine. Her leg muscles coiling and releasing with explosive power. Marcus's smirk began to fade, replaced by a look of genuine surprise. He hadn't expected this. He watched the weight stack go up and down, with a hypnotic rhythm. She wasn't just lifting it. She was owning it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she finished. She sat up, her breathing only slightly elevated. She looked up at Marcus, whose arms were now hanging limply at his sides. "See," I managed. Before he could formulate a retort, a voice boomed from the doorway. "Commander, there you are." A tall, lanky man in navy sweatpants and a hoodie jogged over. He was older, with silver at his temples and a face weathered by sun and salt. He stopped short when he saw the scene. "Chief," he said, acknowledging Marcus with a curt nod that held no warmth. Marcus straightened up immediately, recognizing the silver oak leaves on the man's collar. A Navy commander was not to be trifled with. "Sir," the commander ignored him and turned to the woman, his entire demeanor shifting to one of profound respect. "Commander, we have a situation. The CO needs you in the briefing room ASAP. They just fast-tracked the op. The whole squadron's waiting." The woman, still sitting on the leg press, nodded once. "Understood, Master Chief. Give me 2 minutes to change." The title hung in the air like a live grenade. Master Chief, the highest enlisted rank in the Navy, a man who had probably been in the service since before Marcus was born. And he was reporting to her. The woman stood up. She was several inches shorter than Marcus, but at that moment, she seemed to tower over him. She looked at the Master Chief, then her gaze drifted to Marcus. It wasn't a look of triumph or vindication. It was a look of mild, professional disappointment. The kind a teacher gives a promising student who has just failed a simple test. "The whole squadron, Master Chief?" she asked, her voice quiet. "Who's standing duty?" "Lieutenant Briggs has the watch, Commander." "He's not happy about missing the briefing." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Briggs is always unhappy about something. All right, let's go." She grabbed her jacket and began to walk away. Marcus was rooted to the spot. His mind was reeling. Commander. A full commander. That was a rank it took most officers 15 years to achieve. And the whole squadron. The op. What was she the commander of? The Master Chief paused for a moment before following her. He turned his head, just enough to look Marcus directly in the eye. His voice was low, meant for Marcus's ears only. But it carried the weight of a depth charge. "That," he said, his eyes like chips of ice, "is Commander Elias, Commander Sarah Elias. She commands SEAL Team 6, Charlie Squadron. You might have heard of them. The notorious one that pulled the embassy staff out of Khartoum last year while the rest of the theater was locked down. The one that got the Bin Laden job before the public knew his name. She's got more combat time in the last 5 years than your entire battalion. She doesn't do CrossFit, Chief. She doesn't need a spot. She runs the goddamn show. You just gave the most dangerous woman in the US military a lecture on heavy lift days." The Master Chief didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked out, leaving Marcus Thorne standing alone in the middle of the gym floor, the sound of rain against the window now a deafening roar. Miller and the other Marines stared, their faces pale. The bravado was gone, replaced by a thick, suffocating silence. Marcus felt the blood drain from his own face. The Khartoum embassy job was legendary. It was a ghost story whispered in special operations circles. A team had gone in, against impossible odds, and extracted over 100 people with 0 American casualties. The details were classified, but the outcome was known. It was the kind of op that cemented a unit's place in history. He had called her sweetheart. He had offered to spot her. He had condescended to a woman who had probably killed more men with her bare hands than he had in his entire career. The feeling that washed over him wasn't just embarrassment. It was a profound, gut-wrenching shame. He felt small. He felt foolish. He had built his entire identity on being a tough, no-nonsense warrior, and he had been completely, utterly blind. He had seen a woman in a gym and had immediately filed her away as an amateur, a poser. He had let his prejudice write a story that reality had just savagely edited.